After I was diagnosed with cancer, my wife left me for her ex, saying the diagnosis made her realize life was too short to stay with someone she wasn't truly passionate about. I disappeared from her life. My name is Daniel. I am 41 years old, that I work as a logistics manager for a regional distribution company in Ohio. My days are structured and predictable. I am up at 5:30, in the office by 7, home by 6 unless something breaks. I have always preferred routine over chaos and plans over guesswork. I have been married to my wife, Claire, 38, for 11 years. We have no kids by choice and share a mortgage on a modest 3-bedroom house outside the city. On paper, we had a stable life. Dual income, decent savings, annual vacations, and the kind of social circle that assumes you are fine because you look fine. Claire works in marketing for a mid-sized firm. She is sharp, image-conscious, and very aware of how things appear to other people. For most of our marriage that translated into ambition and drive. Over time it became something else. 6 months ago I was diagnosed with lymphoma. Stage 2. Treatable, according to my oncologist, but aggressive enough that we started chemo within 3 weeks. I approached it the same way I approach operational crises at work. Gather information. Confirm timelines. Execute the plan. I told Claire the prognosis was good. I showed her the survival rates. I laid out the treatment calendar on our kitchen whiteboard. Her first response was not fear. It was frustration. She said this is not how she pictured her 40s starting. She said she had finally felt like we were entering our prime. She said hospitals make her anxious and that she is not built to be someone's nurse. At first I assumed she was just processing badly. People handle shock differently. But over the next few weeks, she became distant and short-tempered. She complained about the smell of antiseptic on my clothes. She rolled her eyes when I asked her to drive me to an infusion because I was too nauseous to focus. She told friends I was milking the diagnosis for sympathy, even though I continued working remotely between treatments. Then her ex, Marcus, resurfaced. They dated in their 20s before I met her. I had heard his name before in passing, usually followed by some nostalgic comment about how intense they had been. Suddenly, he was texting her to check in after hearing about my diagnosis through mutual friends. Claire started staying out later. Said she needed air. Said watching me be sit was suffocating. One night she came home and told me my cancer had made her realize life is too short to stay with someone she was not truly passionate about anymore. That was the sentence that ended my marriage. The next morning she acted like she had done me a favor by saying it out loud. She made coffee, clanked cabinets on purpose, and told me we should be practical. Practical was her favorite word when she wanted to sound reasonable while doing something cruel. I asked her what exactly happened. Not in a dramatic way, just the basic timeline. When did she start talking to Marcus again? How often? Did she see him? Was this an emotional thing or a physical thing? She sighed like I had asked her to do taxes. She said you are always trying to turn everything into a spreadsheet. She said she was not cheating, she was reconnecting. Then she added that if I pushed her, I would be the reason she left, not the cancer. There was a neat trick, blaming me for asking a question that any sane spouse would ask. I told her I was not interested in controlling her. I was interested in reality. I had chemo on Tuesdays. I was losing weight. I was falling asleep at random times like my body had a dead battery. Meanwhile, she was dressing up more than she had in years, and suddenly caring about gym classes she never went to before. She laughed and said you were paranoid because you were sick. She said the meds were messing with my head. Then she looked at my shaved scalp, the one I did early because clumps were coming out in the shower, and she made a face like she had smelled something sour. That night, she did not come home until after midnight. No text, no call. When she walked in, she did not apologize. She dropped her purse on the counter and said I cannot do this tonight, okay. Then she went straight to the guest room we had turned into her office. I was awake on the couch because my nausea meds had worn off. I could smell cologne on her hoodie when she walked past me. Not mine, not hers. Something sharper, like a department store sample sprayed too many times. The next day, I checked our shared calendar because that is how my brain works when something feels off. She had added a dinner block for Thursday. Just the word catch up. No name, no location. I did not confront her right away. I waited, because I wanted to know how far she would take the lie before she admitted the truth. Thursday came, and I said nothing. I made my own dinner, plain rice and grilled chicken, because that was about all I could keep down. She got dressed around 6. Black blouse, heels she had not worn in years. I asked where she was going, calmly. She set out. I said with who? She stared at me like I was a child asking obvious questions. Marcus, she said, since he needed spelled out. There was no apology attached to it, no attempt to soften the blow. She said they were just talking, that he understood her in a way I never did, that he was intense and alive and not consumed by medical charts and fatigue. I told her if she was going on a date with her ex while her husband was in chemotherapy, she should at least call it what it was. She snapped that this was exactly why she could not breathe around me. Everything had to be labeled and defined. Then she said the line that made everything click. I do not sign up to spend my late 30s watching my husband deteriorate. Not might. Not possibly. Deteriorate. I told her the prognosis was good. I had shown her the statistics. My oncologist was optimistic. She waved that away and said statistics do not change how it feels to be married to someone with cancer. She left at 6:42 p.m. I remember the time because I was staring at the microwave clock when the front door shut. She did not come home that night. Around 1 a.m., I got a text. I am staying at Marcus's place. We talk for hours. I need space to think about my life. Not her life. Her life. I did not respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into our joint accounts. Not to spy, to assess. Mortgage order draft was fine. Utilities were fine. Savings untouched. I transferred half of our liquid savings into a separate account in my name only. Completely legal. It was marital money, and I was not going to wake up to it gone. At 2 a.m., I emailed the divorce attorney a brief summary. Married 11 years. No children. Torn house. Recent cancer diagnosis. Spouse left to stay with ex. I attached nothing dramatic. These facts. If Claire wanted to make life short and passionate, I was not going to spend whatever time I had left begging her to stay. Claire came home Saturday afternoon like she had been on a weekend retreat, instead of disappearing on her husband mid-treatment. She looked rested. That was the first thing I noticed. Rested and almost lighter. She walked in, saw me at the dining table with paperwork spread out, and immediately got defensive. "Are you going to interrogate me?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm going to ask you one question." She dropped her purse on the counter. "What now? Are you ending this marriage? Or are you expecting me to tolerate you dating your ex while I go through chemotherapy?" She rolled her eyes and said I was twisting things. That she was just confused. That staying with Marcus for a couple nights did not mean she had filed for divorce. I reminded her of what she said. Life is too short to stay with someone she is not passionate about. That is not confusion. That is a conclusion. She shifted tactics and said I was forcing her into a corner. That she needed space to figure out her feelings without being pressured. I asked her directly if she had slept with him. She did not answer right away. She said it was complicated, which is how people avoid saying yes without technically lying. That was enough. I stood up and told her she had 2 hours to pack what she needed for the week. Clothes, toiletries, laptop. Nothing else. She laughed like I was bluffing. "You cannot just kick me out. My name is on the house." I said I am not kicking you out permanently. I am removing you from this house while we sort out a legal separation. You chose to stay at another man's place. You can continue staying there. Her face hardened. She called me petty. Said I was trying to punish her because I was sick and bitter. I told her this was not about punishment. It was about boundaries. I am not sharing a bed, a kitchen, or a mortgage with someone who is actively auditioning my replacement. She tried to escalate it into a fight. Raised her voice. Accused me of being unstable because of the diagnosis. I did not match her tone. I said if you refuse to leave, I will call my attorney and start formal occupancy proceedings on Monday. Until then, you have 2 hours. She realized I was not bluffing when I started pulling her suitcase out of the closet and setting it on the bed. She packed angrily, slamming drawers, taking more than necessary. I did not stop her from taking clothes. I did stop her from grabbing important financial documents. Those stayed. When she walked out with 2 suitcases, she said, "You will regret this when you are alone and sick." I told her I would rather be alone and sick than married and disrespected. The door closed behind her at 4:17 p.m. I changed the garage code that evening and scheduled the locksmith for Monday to rekey the doors. Legal in my state as long as I provided her access upon request to retrieve property with notice. I texted her once. Contact my attorney for further communication. Then I turned my phone off and sat in my own house, finally quiet. Monday morning the locksmith came at 9 a.m. I showed him my ID, the mortgage statement with my name on it, and explained that my spouse had moved out temporarily and I needed the locks rekeyed. He did not ask for drama. He asked for payment. By 10 a.m., the front and back doors were rekeyed. I left one new key and a sealed envelope with my attorney's name on it in case she requested supervised access to collect larger items. I was not trying to trap her belongings. I was preventing surprise entries. Claire started calling around noon. I would go to voicemail. The first message was anger. You cannot just erase me from my own house. The second was panic. What if I need something? The third was calculation. We need to talk about how this looks if we go through with a divorce. Especially with your condition. That last part told me everything. Not how this feels. How this looks. I responded once, by text. All communication goes through counsel. I have already retained representation. She showed up at the house around 3 p.m. I saw her car on the camera app one had installed years ago for deliveries. She tried the door. It did not open. She knocked, then pounded. I opened it, but kept the chain latched. She said, "This is insane. Marcus thinks you are spiraling." I said Marcus can think whatever he wants from his apartment. She tried to pivot. Said she had not officially moved in with him. That she was just staying there temporarily. That kicking her out was extreme. I reminded her she spent 2 nights with him and told me she was not passionate about her marriage anymore. That is not temporary confusion. She asked if I was really going to go through chemo and a divorce at the same time. Yes. I told her the prognosis was good. Treatment was scheduled for 5 more cycles. I had sick leave banked and short-term disability coverage if needed. I had savings. I had family. What I did not have was patience for being someone's safety net. She softened for a second and said maybe we both reacted too quickly. Maybe we could pause everything until I finished treatment. That was the backup plan trying to reinsert itself. I told her clearly, you do not get to test drive your ex and keep me in storage in case it does not work out. Her face hardened again. She said Marcus makes her feel chosen, desired, alive. I said then you should go be alive. She left after that, slamming the car door hard enough that I heard it through the windows. That evening I met with my attorney again. We drafted a formal separation agreement proposal. 50-50 split of assets after appraisal. House to be sold unless one of us buys the other out. Clean, efficient. I did not mention Marcus in the paperwork. I did not need to. The facts were already enough. 2 weeks later, I shaved what little hair I had left. Not because it was falling out in dramatic clumps. Because I was tired of seeing it thin in the mirror. Control what you can control. Claire texted less after she received the separation draft. Her tone shifted from emotional to strategic. She did not want the house sold. She could not afford to buy me out on her salary alone. Marcus, apparently, was in between projects. That phrased it a lot of work. She suggested we delay listing the house until I completed treatment, so the market might improve. Said selling now would be disruptive for both of us. I asked my attorney to run the numbers. Even after realtor fees, we would both walk away with enough for a solid reset. Clean break. No shared property tying us together. Claire requested to come by and collect more of her things. I agreed to Saturday at 11 a.m. with my brother present as a neutral third party. Not because I expecting violence. Because I expected revisionist history. She arrived alone. She looked at me for a long moment when she walked in. I was thinner, paler. The chemo had carved angles into my face that were not there before. For a second I thought I saw guilt. Then she said, "You look worse." No softness. Just observation. I told her treatment was working according to the scans. She shrugged and said she hoped so. While she packed books and shoes, she kept talking about Marcus in casual ways. How he had started meditating again. How he was talking about launching a consulting firm. How he was proud of her for choosing herself. Choosing herself. I asked her one thing before she left. Are you in a relationship with him? She did not hesitate this time. Yes. No apology attached. No transition period. Just is. An audit. That clarity helped more than anything she had said in weeks. As she carried her last box out, she said you disappeared emotionally the moment you got diagnosed. You became a patient instead of a husband. I told her I became someone fighting to live. She drove away without responding. That night I made a decision that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with me. I requested a transfer within my company to our regional office 3 states away once treatment concluded. It was available. Similar pay. Smaller team. Lower stress. I did not tell Claire. If she believed life was too short to stay where she was not passionate, I agreed with the principle. I just applied it differently. Chemo finished in early spring. My final scan showed no detectable active cancer. My oncologist used the word remission. He also used the phrase cautious optimism, which is doctor language for do not celebrate too loudly yet. I did not tell Claire. By then, Our divorce was moving through mediation. Clean split. The house appraisal came in slightly higher than expected. She pushed again to keep it. Said it was too much upheaval to sell. I offered a buyout number based on the appraisal minus projected fees. Fair. Documented. She could not secure financing. Marcus, according to her, was still building his next venture. I did not ask details. During mediation, she tried a new angle. She said the timing of all this made her look heartless. That leaving a sick husband for an ex would follow her socially and professionally. She asked if we could list irreconcilable differences without specifying dates. I said that is exactly what we are doing. I am not publishing a memoir. She seemed disappointed I was not angrier. She wanted me volatile. It would have justified her narrative that I was unstable after the diagnosis. Instead, I was calm. When the house officially went on the market, she cried. Not about us. About the kitchen she redesigned, and the backyard she wanted to host parties in. I moved into a short-term rental closer to the hospital for follow-up appointments. Small place, minimal furniture, quiet. One evening, about 3 months after she moved out, she called instead of texting. I always did not answer. Curiosity won. She said Marcus and her were struggling. That passion does not automatically translate into stability. That he resented how much of her life was still entangled legally with me. Should that make sense? She asked if I had started dating. I said that is not relevant. There was a long pause. Then she said I did not think you would actually go through with it. I thought he would fight harder. That sentence clarified everything. She believed the diagnosis made me desperate. That I would cling tighter because I was afraid of being alone and sick. I told her something simple. You left because you believed I was deteriorating. You were calling because I did not. Silence on the other end. Then she asked if there was any chance of us reconsidering once everything was finalized. I said no. Not angry. Not bitter. Just no. She hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I signed the final transfer paperwork with my company. New state. New lease. Fresh start. I did not tell her I was leaving. Not yet. The day the divorce was finalized, I did not feel triumphant. I felt finished. The judge signed off on the agreement without drama. Assets divided. House sale proceeds wired to separate accounts. No spousal support either way. 11 years reduced to a stack of stamped paper and a case number. Claire texted that afternoon. It is officially over. I waited an hour before responding. Yes. She sent another message 5 minutes later. I did not think it would feel this empty. I stared at that one longer than I expected to. Empty was the word she used after she left a husband in chemotherapy for an ex, because life was too short. I typed and erased 3 different responses before settling on one. That is something you will have to process on your own. She called immediately after that. I declined it. Then she texted again. Can we at least not hate each other? There it was. The need to soften the edges so she could live comfortably with the story, she told herself. I did not hate her. Hate requires energy. I was investing mine elsewhere. I responded once more. I do not hate you. I am done. Then I opened my settings. I blocked her number. I blocked her email. I removed her from every shared cloud account that still had residual access. I deleted the old photo albums from my phone, not in a dramatic purge, just systematically. 11 years reduced to empty storage space. For a moment I sat there with the quiet after the block. It felt different than silence before. Before, there was always the possibility of interruption. Now there was a wall. An intentional one. About 20 minutes later my brother texted. Claire just called me. Says you blocked her. She sounds panicked. I responded. That is accurate. He sent back a single word. Finally, that night I packed the last of my things into my car. The transfer date was 2 weeks away, but I had already signed the lease in the new state. Smaller city. Slower pace. Close to a different hospital network for follow-ups. No forwarding address shared with her. She wanted passion over stability. I chose peace over chaos. And for the first time since the diagnosis, I slept through the night. I moved 3 states away on a Tuesday morning with everything I owned fitting into a small moving truck and the back of my car. No dramatic farewell. No last look at the old house. The new place was a 2-bedroom rental near a river trail. Quiet neighborhood. Different skyline. No shared memories attached to the walls. I did not announce the move publicly. I updated my address with work, with the bank, with my medical providers. That was it. 2 weeks after I relocated, my brother called. She showed up at the old place. I had already closed on the sale by then. The new owners had moved in. Apparently Claire went there assuming I was still nearby, maybe thinking the block was temporary and dramatic. The new owner told her I had relocated out of state. There was how she found out. My brother said she sounded shaken when she called him again. Asked if he knew where I went. He told her he did not. Which was true. I had shared the exact city with no one except my HR department and my oncologist. A few days later she tried emailing from a different address. It landed in spam. I read the preview line before deleting it. I did not realize you would actually disappear. That word again. Disappear. From her perspective, that is what I did. From mine, I removed myself from a situation that had already ended the moment she decided passion mattered more than partnership. I focused on follow-up appointments, physical therapy to regain strength, and building a new routine. New grocery store. New gym. New colleagues. 6 months into remission, my hair started coming back thicker than before. I caught my reflection one morning and did not see a patient. I saw myself again. I started dating slowly. Nothing serious at first. Coffee. Conversations. No rushing. One evening I got a message on LinkedIn from Claire. Professional tone. I hope you are well. I heard you are in remission. I am glad. That was the first time she acknowledged my recovery directly. I did not respond. Blocking her number had not been about punishment. It had been about reclaiming control. Not answering her now felt like the continuation of that same boundary. She chose a life without me when she thought I was deteriorating. I chose a life without her when I realized I was not. It has been a little over a year since the divorce was finalized. My scans are still clear. I go in every few months for follow-ups. Each appointment feels less like a crisis and more like maintenance. I kept the transfer permanently. I was promoted 6 months after relocating. Smaller team, less politics, better margins. Life is quieter now. About 3 months ago, a mutual friend from our old circle reached out. Not to gossip, just to check in. In the conversation he mentioned, casually, that Claire and Marcus broke up. Apparently passion is exhausting when it has to handle bills, and real life. He said she seemed different lately. Less sharp. More subdued. That she mentioned regretting how she handled things when I was sick. I listened. I did not ask follow-up questions. 2 weeks after that, I received a handwritten letter forwarded from my old address. The new owners had been kind enough to send it along. It was from Claire. No blame. No excuses this time. She wrote that fear had driven her more than honesty. That watching me get diagnosed made her panic about losing the version of life she had imagined. That running toward Marcus felt like running away from mortality. She admitted she thought I would fight for her harder. That she believed my illness may be dependent. She wrote that when she heard I was in remission and had moved, she realized I had not disappeared. I had chosen. The letter ended with a simple line. I am sorry I underestimated you. I read it once. Then I folded it back into the envelope and put it in a drawer. Not as a keepsake. As a document. I did not respond. People on here might ask if I feel vindicated. If I am glad she saw the consequences. The truth is simpler. Cancer forced me to confront mortality. Claire forced me to confront respect. One of those I could not control. The other, I could. When she said life was too short to stay with someone she was not passionate about, she was right about one thing. Life is short. That is exactly why I refused to spend it convincing someone to stay.